Well, turning now to inflation and the cost of living crisis in the United States today, the IRS has announced that it's raising income thresholds for all tax brackets by 7% to compensate for rampant inflation. Essentially, it's an automatic cost of living adjustment built into tax brackets to keep pace with inflation. And it means that Americans will get a little tax relief during a challenging economic moment. Joining me now to discuss the idea is Sense Partners economist Shamubeel Yaqub. Shamubeel, Kiwis have had a shock this week with inflation continuing at pace. So could this idea we're seeing in the US of indexing taxes to inflation work here?
Absolutely. So Michael Cullen had proposed this many years ago, and it never really got going. And that's because it's very political. You know, political parties want to make it seem like they're giving you tax cuts by adjusting the brackets, and so it feels good, right? But the reality is that we are paying more taxes. Our income is not going as far because of the rise in cost of living. CPI is currently about 7%, and if our indexes increase by 7%, the average worker at $65,000 would be paying $500 less in tax.
It's so interesting. So essentially, because the cost of everything is rising, so are the taxes that we're paying, the government. So this is essentially a way to soften the impact of inflation on taxpayers by taking a little bit off the government during this time.
Well, I think it's actually unfair that the government gets the benefit of rising cost of living through higher taxes. That should always be adjusted over time. And what it has become is a cynical political ploy on both sides, where they don't want to do anything during the years between elections, and they want to adjust the tax brackets when the election is near, because it makes it seem like they're giving you a great gift. But in reality, all they're giving you back is the cost of inflation of the last 3 years.
And it would really come in handy at this moment, wouldn't it, for Kiwis? It would take that sort of the politics out of tax relief.
Totally. So, you know, at the moment, the brackets are being used as this political toy. And instead, what we should be talking about is the fundamental structure of our taxes. Are we paying enough taxes on wealth? Do we have the right amount on GST? Do we have the right balance of the taxes on income? Instead, what we tend to find is this kind of this lolly scramble when election years come, which will happen next year, is, oh, we're going to give you this tax cut by adjusting the tax brackets. I think it's entirely cynical, and I think it's far too convenient for them to do this. We really do need to implement something like this.
Well, just finally, Shamubeel, I want to ask you what you think of National Social Investment Policy announcement today.
In principle, it's a brilliant idea. In practice, I think what it has failed in the past to do is actually invest real additional capital. We spend close to $45 billion a year on social welfare services. And if you're going to start small with $10 million or $100 million here or there, it is not going to make a dent in this huge cost and huge burden that New Zealand faces.
Yes, we really need to see some more detail. Shamubeel, thank you so much for joining us here on 8 o'clock.